Good morning, Britain. A plea for the truth ahead of the COVID inquiry's first public hearing today. Bereaved families are calling for greater openness and say they are deeply frustrated by how they are being treated.
Meanwhile, a war of words continues to erupt between Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson over his resignation honours list as MPs prepare to publish what is expected to be a hugely critical report about the former Prime Minister's conduct.
Calls for abortion reform after a woman was sentenced to more than 2 years for taking medication to induce an abortion after the legal limit.
News this morning that Just Stop Oil protests have cost the Met Police an eye-watering £4.5 million in just 6 weeks. So, is it time that the protesters footed the bill for the police policing their protests? Let us know what you think. We're going to ask one of the men who's bankrolled the group, Labour donor and eco-tycoon Dale Vince.
And she is the disco diva responsible for classic dance floor fillers. Find out what Candy Staten thinks of becoming a TikTok sensation when she joins us after 8.
Yesterday's thunderstorms have cleared, a drier day ahead, but staying hot and humid. I'll have all the details of that and more coming up on Good Morning Britain.
Tuesday, 13th of June, 2023. Live from Television Centre in London, this is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Richard Madeley.
Good morning.
Good morning. I've got something here.
Yeah.
We should all have one of these. What was that?
I don't know.
It looks like a sock. Anyway, we should all have one of these on our last journey to the cemetery, to our wake. Because the Victorians used to put these in their own coffins, you know.
Where are we going with this, Richard?
We're going with this extraordinary story from Ecuador of a woman, what she called Bella Montoya, who woke up at her wake. She was lying in her coffin. Everybody thought she was dead.
With the lid on?
With the lid on. And then they heard noises. She'd woken up. She wasn't dead at all. Now, in Victorian times, people used to be buried with these. So if that happened, you could ring the bell inside.
Isn't
that extraordinary?
It's your worst nightmare, isn't it?
But it happened. Anyway, she's doing well. 76 years old, back in the land of the living.
OK, well, yes, good. Perhaps we should change the rules then.
OK. Top coffins, maybe.
The Times this morning claims to have a copy of this report that is going to be issued by the Privileges Committee. We talked about it yesterday, didn't we? We saw an eruption of fury between the serving Conservative Prime Minister and the former Conservative Prime Minister, where Rishi Sunak basically said, if you didn't like what I said to you in that meeting, then tough. But according to the Times this morning, who have a copy of this report, Boris Johnson did deliberately mislead Parliament over the Downing Street Party's scandal.
They're saying that specifically he was told by his advisers that he couldn't say in the Commons that he'd been advised that parties hadn't happened. He couldn't say that. They hadn't told him that. But that's what he said.
Yeah, and he claimed he was advised. The committee said that that wasn't true and that, in fact, he misled the committee as well. And this, of course, all comes on the day of the first session of the UK's long-awaited COVID inquiry. Yeah. It finally opens after all of that row over what sort of testimony could be given to the committee and the WhatsApps and what should be in them. They're going to hear testimonies from bereaved families. The chair, Baroness Hallett, has promised to put the 226,000 victims of the pandemic at the heart of her investigation. However, there are relatives who are furious that they won't be able to appear to give evidence.
There's also speculation this thing could drag on for up to 5 years. And as the government's handling of the pandemic comes under the spotlight, as of this morning, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson, as we've just said, are locked in their own war of words over the former Prime Minister's attempt to give peerages to several close allies. Our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, is at the National COVID Memorial Wall in central London, and our political correspondent, Louisa James, is at Westminster. So, first to Richard in central London. Richard, it was Boris Johnson's actions during COVID which obviously sowed the seeds of his downfall. And now the whole government handling of the pandemic is coming under close scrutiny as of this morning, right?